right, people, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe. You are in episode 48. Episode 48 is Teenage Deadly Drama. All right, so here at the cafe, we always have a conversation centered around a drink. And today I am drinking on some water. Boom, 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 in my little trusty cup there. Let me get some. Woo, very cold. And I made me a soy milk latte, double shot latte that is here. Boom, boom, boom. Now, I would tell you one thing about making this particular latte. This is actually the second time that I've made a latte with soy milk. And so here's the only complaint I would have. It tastes good, it's less carbs, right? And you get 20 grams of protein. But the problem is that you don't get that when you are frothing the milk and steaming the milk, you don't get that frothy, lathery feel with the latte that you can get with almond milk or regular milk. But other than that, it's pretty good. Love me a latte. All right. So before we get into what we are talking about, teenage deadly drama, I want to talk about two things. Okay. First and foremost, I don't know how many times I need to say this, but I guess I need to say this again. This is a bar themed podcast. That means that it is centered around having a drink, having a conversation. And so that means in the process of us having a conversation, sometimes we trail off, right? Because naturally, when you're at a bar and you are engaging with conversation, you naturally would trail off or you will interrupt each other, right? It's not anything heinous. There's nothing nefarious with it. It's just the concept of having a good conversation, right? So if you are not looking for that, unfortunately, I can't promise that we will forever be on a script because we don't do scripts either. And so we're not just going to read it or talk robotically about a particular subject. And I know, particularly when it comes to crimes, people watch shows and then they want to see what other commentary is out there. And so they go and find other things. And so I've been receiving some comments on YouTube about some of the cases that we've been talking about. And I get it. People want people to just talk about the case, but that's not what this podcast is about. It's truly about enjoying each other's conversation in a bar setting with some drinks, whether that is alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and engaging in fruitful, engaging and positive conversations as much as they can be. And oftentimes that requires us, or that naturally segue into other issues, or, just normal, laughing and cutting people off, but it's nothing nefarious about that. So I just want to make that clear. Secondly, one thing that I've started to realize is that these signs that a lot of homeowners have, I don't have it on my home, I just think they're dumb, but about dogs or, no pee zone, don't be respectful. And I'm like, who are you talking to? As the dog owner, I'm the only one who can read it, right? So obviously you're talking to me, but they're really, if you really think about it, they are really it's a flag to the dog. Come here, right? So as soon as my dog walked past any of these posts, immediately he just goes and pees. Like, I'm just like, it's a magnet. Like, it's a pee magnet because the dog sees something sticking out the grass. And so naturally they're going to go there. They're going to smell it. And obviously other dogs have marked their territory on or around that area as well. And so, as a dog owner, it's hard because I want to be respectful to the homeowner's choice, right? This is a no pee zone, right? And then I also don't want to get into any confrontation because I don't know if they're recording it or, some of these folks not working, ain't got no life. And so they just look out the window all day, every day to try to see if someone is violating their sign. I just think it's stupid. And so anyhow, that is my little straight up no chaser discussion for today. All right, so let's get into episode 48. Episode 48 is Teenage Deadly Drama. We are in the good old sunshine state of Florida. Okay, I forget specifically which little city it is, but it's not that far outside of Orlando. We are traveling back in time about 10 years ago in 2011, and we are discussing the Seth Jackson case. And I think his middle name is Taylor. But Seth Jackson was a 15-year-old kid in Florida, the typical 15-year-old boy, right, who loves skateboarding, who loves just hanging around, joking around, being dramatic, right? And as most teenagers, are. Now, I tell you, for me, I was in 15. I think I was all into music. So I was in high school, so I was always playing some instrument. I played saxophone, bassoon, French horn, marching French horn, mellophone, and what did I say? Saxophone, bassoon, mellophone, and harp. Yeah. So those are the instruments that I play. But I was pretty much a nerd, so I didn't do a lot. So, but Seth was the opposite of me. He was cool in his circle of friends. A huge skateboarder. He was attracted to another 15-year old by the name of Amber Wright. Okay, so he had this crush on Amber for quite some time, and he eventually worked up the nerve to go and have a conversation with her. Now, I would tell you that the show that I watched to get some of the background information before I did some additional research on it, a little melodramatic, right? They showed him at a skating rink, and he was sitting next to Amber, and he was like, I go for what I want. If I see something I want, and so at the time he reached over, hugged Amber, and kissed her, right? Now, whether or not that happened in real life, I'm uncertain because, a lot of these shows take creative liberty to make it a little more melodramatic than what it is. But anyhow, the facts, at least as presented, was that Seth was a 15-year-old who was emphatic or infatuated, with Amber. They eventually become a couple, right? Now, the show opens with a scene where obviously there was a Facebook post, right? And that Facebook post was from Amber Wright, right? And so it says this, I wrote it down. You continuously write shit about me, talk shit about me, hate on me. Learn the definition of done. And underneath there was a picture of her with another guy. And this guy happened to be an older individual by quite some years. I think he was at least 4 to 5 years older than him. Than Amber. So it starts off with that. Then we go back into time, right? We have Seth at some point in time. We have Seth Jackson. We enter into a classroom, right? And in the classroom, noticeably empty, is Seth Jackson's seat, right? So his friends is like, what's going on? He isn't here. And they knew and understood that he had some problems with some of the other students, right? And so, people are going back and forth trying to figure out what's going on. His mom eventually goes to the police like the next morning because he missed his curfew, and at least as presented there, he missed his curfew, didn't come home that night. And so she's concerned, she's worried. So she goes to the police, and the typical thing, your child as a teenager, maybe he's upset, maybe he ran away, and we typically don't do anything if the person hasn't been missing for 24 hours, because at that time it's only been a few hours that he missed curfew. And obviously she properly communicated with the school to find out if he showed up, and he didn't show up. And so she went to the police to try to figure out what's going on with her son. So then that is how the scene of this particular show opens, right? And then we go back into time where Amber and Seth were in this whirlwind love affair, right? As only teenagers can do, right? Because, you get in love, you get a girlfriend, you get a boyfriend in 2 minutes, and then next week y'all in love, right? It's typical love affair of teenagers. And one thing that teenagers have now, or at least in 2011 as well, that I didn't have growing up, is the advent of social media, right? So who I liked, my crushes, or who I was involved in, yeah, the people around me would know, right? Because, they would see us together. But not the whole world. I'm not posting, oh, I love this person on Facebook. But here in this particular case, we have that, right? You have, not only are you involved in that particular relationship, your close friends are involved in that personal relationship that you have with this person whom you say you in love with, and then those people who are distant friends or none friends or no friends at all because they are on social media, but yet you're posting everything about your love and things of that nature on Facebook. So they're all involved in this whirlwind love affair between Seth Jackson and Amber Wright. Okay. Now, in the midst of this is that we have Kyle Hooper. Okay. Kyle Hooper is Amber's half brother, right? And Kyle and Seth are close friends. Now, whether they're best friends or not, I don't know, but it at least as presented, it appears as if they were very close, significantly close. They hung out a lot, played a lot of video games together, went different places together, did skateboarding together. And so naturally, once Seth began dating Amber, it was like one big family, right? So at least that's the way it was presented. So at some point in time, Amber indicates that, whatever happens, this is the typical aspect. You have two 15-year-old people. You have a young lady, right? And then you have a 15-year-old boy. Science, a lot of people in the science world indicate that even though they're the same age, because they are different sexes, the maturity levels are worlds apart, right? So at some point, the relationship begins to crack, right? And it begins to crack because Amber believes that Seth is a little too immature, right? He likes to post all these crazy, weird pictures of her, that she is conscious about her image. She doesn't want out there, right? And quite frankly, she doesn't think is as funny as Seth thinks, right? So this maturity level, even though they're the same age, they're so far apart, and it's like, what the heck, right? Okay. So at some point, Amber decides she no longer wants to be with Seth. Okay. The problem is though, she doesn't tell Seth this, right? So there's no discussion. There's no, hey, I don't think this is working out. There's no, I want to break up. She just ghosts him, right? And this is probably before ghosting was a thing, because this was in 2011. So he's hitting her up, Facebook, Messenger, cell phone, text messages. She's just not responding. And so, this 15-year-old boy who is in love with this girl, right, who was accustomed to hanging out with her all the time and hanging out with the brother as well. Now she's just gone, missing, right? Now, not missing in the sense of no one can find him, but she's not responded to his messages. Now, what I'm not clear on, and I haven't even am trying to do some independent research, it appeared they all went to the same school. So I don't know or understand how Seth and Amber, and given the fact that they're both the same age, it's clear to me at least that they're probably in the same grade. And in school, they can at least pass each other if they're not in the same class, maybe lunch hour or something. But for whatever reason, she ghosts him, particularly in the sense of not hanging out with him, not responding to his messages, and quite frankly, does not tell him that she's no longer interested in him because he's immature. And so what happens is there was a time where Seth is looking online, right? Because as we do with social media allows us to put everything out there. So we think we need to put everything out there, right? So Seth goes online. He notices that Amber is at a party, right? Now, it's not the fact that she's at a party that bothers him. Okay, that does bothers him at some degree, right? Because he has been trying to communicate with her. She hasn't been responding, right? She's ghosting. And she didn't tell him they weren't together. Okay. So in his head and his mind, they're still together because they never had that closure that teenagers sometimes need. Like, I need to hear you say we're no longer girlfriend, boyfriend, right? Okay. So he didn't hear that. So therefore, we're still together. So he sees that she's online at a party. But what triggers him is that she sees that she posts a picture of her, Kyle, and this other guy named Mike Bargo, right? Now, Mike Bargo is an older individual. I think at that time he had to have been maybe 19, 20, but older than both Seth and Amber. So Seth is furious. He's pissed off. Like, my girl is here at this party posting with some other dude ghosting me, right? And not even inviting me. So Seth says, look, screw that. I'm going to crash this party, right? I know where you are. You told me where you were. You put your location out there on Facebook. So I'm going to come and I'm going to see what is up, right? So Seth goes, right? Him and his friend, they go to the party. He goes to the door. Now, in there at the party, he walks in, and at least as presented, and I don't know if this is in real life or not, um, it's underage drinking, right? So folks are there drinking, having, music playing, underage drinking, having a good old time. And when Seth walks in, he notices that Amber is near Mike. But not only is Amber near Mike, she's all hugged up on him. And at some particular point, they begin kissing. So Seth sees this. He goes berserk. I mean, he is pissed, right? He screams her name out. Amber, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Can't believe this type of thing. And, she doesn't say much. She's embarrassed, right? Because obviously she recognizes that she didn't communicate with Seth. And when I say obviously, I'm just thinking naturally any human being, right, in that situation would be like, oh shit, I forgot to tell him. Oh, by the way, we're no longer dating. But whatever. But naturally, the thing that comes across is that Seth, it's not just pissed at Amber for practically cheating on him, right? Because in his head, they're still together. In her head, it may not be treated cheating because she already decided she's not dating him anymore. But it's a challenge because now you're with this older dude who happens to be cooler, right? More popular, stronger, whatever, a little more edgy. And so naturally, now I'm in competition with this dude. And so now I'm pissed, right? So that's what happened. Seth and Bargo exchange some words at the party. Push comes to shove at some particular point. Mike Bargo screams and who do you think you are coming to my party? Blah, 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 whatever. And at least here, right, in the show that kind of highlights some of these issues here, is that then Mike Bargo says to Seth, you come back in my house, I'm gonna kill you. Right? So you get the threat. Seth leaves the party, right? But he's pissed. So now I need to get back at both of you all, right? So Seth goes and does with any natural, mature or immature 15-year-old who has the world at his fingertips. He goes to social media. And in the process of going to social media, he began posting things, the things that just a little derogatory towards Amber, right? Getting back at her. I'm trying to, piss her off. Calling her skanky hoe, saying things about what she was doing that she claims wasn't inaccurate, actually was not true. And so it just naturally sparks this whole Facebook I hate you situation going back and forth. And naturally what happens is all of the friends, the students, they start chiming in about what was going on. Some supporting Amber, some not. Some egging on Seth to keep it going because it's drama. It's natural drama, right? This is what makes me want to wake up in the morning and go to school. Not the fact that I need to go to biology and learn something. Not the fact that I need to learn trigonometry or anything like that. I want the juice about what's going on with you two lovebirds who are now pissed with each other. And not only that, now we involve the older man, right? We got this older student or kid involved who was a high school dropout, so he was not at the same school as them. So that gives it another edgy aspect of it, right? So then what happens is that, okay, that's not enough. I'm not just going to go for you, Amber. Now I'm going on social media and I'm going to come for Bargo. So then he goes into this whole social media rant and rabbit hole relating to Bargo and calling him out and things of that nature. Amber goes on social media because, right, you're going to get attacked with social media. You're going to attack with social media. So she goes on and basically says that these things are not true, what have you, and that that text message, or excuse me, that post that I read earlier, this is where it comes to play, because she says, you continuously write shit about me, talk shit about me, hate on me, learn the definition of done. And on that is where she posts a picture of her and Bargo, and they're like kissing in the post. So that even drives Seth to the next level. Okay. So he moves it outside of social media and he goes to Mike Bargo's house, right? He's outside the house screaming, come out, fight me, blah, blah, blah. I will burn this house down and burn this house down with you in it, things of that nature, right? So he's pissed off, right? Now, the way they present the two characters here that portrays both Seth and Bargo. Bargo's is larger, he's more athletic look, a little more edgy. Seth is, he has his own little swagger, but he's still smaller and more of the kid next door features, right? But in this particular sense, he's not that, right? He's pissed, he's infuriated. Bargo doesn't come out, okay? So they don't get into any kind of altercation. So all of that happens, and in the midst of this, Seth receives an anonymous text message. I don't know if it's from Google or one of those other texting apps, and basically it says, payback is coming, right? And so that just creates this whole situation. And in the midst of this, remember and recall that I said that Seth was good friends with Kyle, right? Who happens to be Amber's half brother. But that relationship naturally deteriorates, right? And it naturally deteriorates because Kyle feels that this is family. You're talking about my sister. You're calling her all these derogatory names. You need to chill out, bro. Seth just basically tell him, look, you and I are friends. This has nothing to do with you. You need to stay out of it. Kyle responds back, nah, bruh, this is family. So you pulled me into it. You need to stop, basically. Like, it was almost like a cease and desist letter, but through text message. But ultimately, that didn't happen, right? Obviously, the confrontation continued on Facebook. The Facebook war continued, and they continued to engage with one another back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? And so Kyle breaks off his friendship with Seth. Basically, he says, you're dead to me, right? So Seth not only loses Amber, but he also loses his friend. And not only does he lose his friend, that means that his friend took the side of Amber, who obviously cheated on Seth with an older dropout loser, right? So you have this stairway to passivity, right? We were friends. You were supposed to support me. You didn't support me. You went over and decided you're going to support your half sister Amber. But not only that, you're supporting what she did to me, which was not fair. And then you're supporting the dude that she's with, who we all know is a troublemaker and a loser, right? So just have these stairs to passivity in regards to Seth. So Seth does the only thing that a natural, mature or immature 15-year-old boy would do. Seth decides, okay, Kyle, you want to play this game? I got you, bro. So this is all about to be messy boots, right? All messy. So Seth decides, all right, I'm going to start messing with your girl, okay? So Kyle is in a relationship with a girl named Megan. Megan has always liked Seth, right? But Seth, being the friend that he is to Kyle, he would never do anything with that because he respected his friend. So, he would ignore her and flirtations that she would provide to him. He would ignore that. And so then what happens is in ignoring that, he decides, since Kyle decided that he was going to support Amber and Bargo, he says to hell with it. And so he started messing around with Megan. So Megan and Seth start hanging out and hooking up with each other in school. When I say hooking up, like kissing and blah, 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 blah. So in that process, because Megan, I guess, is excited that the guy that she always liked is now into her, she started ghosting Kyle. So Kyle is trying to communicate with her. She's not responding. So Kyle said, "The hell with this. I'm gonna go to your house, chick." He pulls up, go to the house, and apparently goes and look into the window, sees Kyle and Megan in the bed, and according to him, they were having sex. So he's pissed off, and in the midst of them engaging with one another in the bedroom. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, the truth about whether or not they were having sex, okay? But he sends a message to her, basically said, "We're through, chick, you dirty, you did me wrong." And in response, he says to Kyle, "You're dead," right? Okay, so that is technically could be seen as a threat, right? Someone sends you a message that you're dead, that, if you are engaged in a social media war, a battle, right? Or if you are engaged with someone who you know that you don't have a close relationship with, that could be seen as a threat. And so that is how the police saw that text, okay? So let's go to that. So eventually what happens is Seth is missing for some period of time, right? The police in the process of this is investigating what's going on. Not only is Seth missing, but Bargo is missing as well. So as the police is investigating this, in their head, there are multiple things that's going on. Did Bargo do something to Seth? Or since Seth was the one who went to Bargo's house and threatened to burn down the house with him in it, maybe Seth harmed Bargo and went missing, right? Went on the run. They naturally talked to Amber. Amber said, "Look, we've been broken up 3 weeks ago. I haven't really been seeing them," even though they're in the same school again, and even though she didn't tell them that she broke up with him. So yeah, I haven't really seen the kid. We don't really socialize. The breakup wasn't that good. Somehow or another, the police find out about the text message that Kyle sends Seth, right? And so he's naturally a suspect. He comes in, they bring him in, they question him. He basically toes the line. "No, I was pissed off. I just wanted him to learn a lesson. That's my sister, blah, blah, blah," right? So he doesn't know anything about where Seth is at this moment. Seth is still missing, as is Bargo. And so he also doesn't know what's going on with Bargo. So Kyle goes home. Apparently he's shook, concerned about the conversation that he had with the police. He talks to his mom, and then what happens is his mom calls the police the next day and says that I may know something about the missing kid. And so for the police, they're like, "What missing kid? Who are you talking about? Barrow, Seth, who?" And she says, "Seth." And so then she says, "My son knows more than what he lets on." And so they ask who the son is, and naturally it comes out to be Kyle Hooper. So Kyle goes back, and so he tells the story about what truly happened with Bargo and Seth, okay? And so before I get to that, I'm just going to say this, particularly for parents. You need to know what's going on with the children. Yeah, you need to know who they're socializing with. You need to know who they are in love with, because things that seems innocent, right? Innocent love, or, "Oh, that's just typical teenage puppy love." Sometimes it can come to situations where it goes well past that. So be cognizant, be vigilant, look at your folks' cell phone, figure out what's going on. But if they on the family plan, know their location. I'm that type of person. Look, I need to know where you are. I need to know your location. And until you pay your own bills, that's the way it's going to be. Okay. You want privacy on the cell phone? Go get a job, start paying your own bill. Okay. But I needs to know what's going on. That's how I operate. But anyhow, so Kyle is at the police station. He's talking to the officers about what happens. And so this is how the story transpires. So they being Amber, Kyle, then you have Bargo, then you have a guy who is about 21 years old named Justin Soto, and then you have a Charlie Faley. I think that's how you pronounce his name. They're all at the house chilling. I think they are at Charlie's house. They all are chilling, and basically the discussion naturally progresses to what the hell Seth was doing. Seth was online, disrespecting my girl. This is Bargo. He's disrespecting me, coming to my house, threatening me, telling me he's going to burn it down, burn me down with it. The boy needs to be stopped, blah, blah, blah. We need to do something about it. And Amber chimes in, was like, yeah, we need to do something. He needs to learn the lesson. So they come up with a plan to teach Seth the lesson. Okay. So the way the plan unfolds is Amber sends Seth a message, text message. It was like, hey, we need to talk. Can we talk? We need to meet. So he was hesitant about, okay, do I even respond to this? This seems fishy. And what about Mike? You now with him, like how's this going to be? And so naturally that creates this whole situation, right? And he decides to meet, and he basically says, look, I don't want anyone else around. If we're going to meet, it needs to be us, right? If we're going to have this mature conversation, let's have this mature conversation. Amber's like, yeah, bet. So she gives him an address, says, meet me at my friend's house. Now, here's another thing, right? They were dating for some time. I don't think Seth even knew this friend, okay? But his desire to be with the person whom he thought he loved, right, overtook his sensibilities, I think, in that particular instance. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's 15, right? 15 years old, in love, thinking that he's going to be able to work things out. He lost his girlfriend, but he also lost his friend. And so naturally, if he and Amber can mend the fences with their issues, then that naturally can progress to him being able to mend the issues with Tyler. So he walks in. Little do he know that it's a setup, right? So he walks in to the house, calls her name, turns around, get hit in the head with a baseball bat. Who does that? Kyle. Okay. Kyle hits him in the, I think I called him Tyler earlier, sorry. Kyle hits him in the head with a baseball bat. He falls out naturally, right? Okay, you just get knocked out. And then Justin and Charlie and Amber, they all start beating him and beating him and beating him while he's laying on the ground. And in the process of this, right, he's obviously hurt. You have 4 people jumping on him, right? He's already been hit with a baseball bat. So what else do you need to do? So then Mike Bargo stands on top of him, and according to Kyle, this portion was not planned. He takes out a gun. He wants, and according to the information that was presented there, right, he wanted Seth to see him for the last time, and so that Seth would know that he's the one who's taking him out, and he shoots him. So then what they do is they wrap the poor Seth up in a sleeping bag. They've already created a fire, like a bonfire. They take him out to the back, throw him out there into the fire until his flesh and bones is withered to ashes, right? And then the next morning, Justin and Mike Bargo goes out and shovels up Seth's ashes and then put them in these like 5-gallon paint containers, put like cement in it, and throw it into the river or some kind of bay. The boy's ashes. So just think about that. 15 years old, and the last thing you see is a person that you love bring you to a home so that you can be hit by your quote unquote one of your best friends or ex-best friends, and then have all these random folks just jumping you, and then have the ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend stand over you, points a gun, and shoots you, right? And we don't know whether that gunshot killed him or not. Okay, it could have just severely wounded him. So we don't know because what killed him. We don't know if it was the gunshot. We don't know if it was the fire, right? And we won't know that because you can't do an autopsy on ashes. And so as a parent, I can just only imagine how that would feel to not be able to, first of all, to lose a child at 15. That's 15 years old, whose life hasn't even truly begun yet. But then not be able to see the person, your child again, right? Even if the person is deceased, there's something about being able to have a funeral, right? Unless you prefer to be cremated, and being able to say and do a rite of passage for that person to move on to the next world in which they are going to reside. There's something to be said about that. But the mother didn't have that opportunity. It was taken away from her. All over Facebook posts, stupidity, and the belief of that you had to show that disrespect was not going to be tolerated. So, interesting enough, on the show, Mike Bargo's attorney was there talking, right? And it wasn't, I mean, he basically, to me, he didn't, he pretty much said his claim is guilty in so many words. Now, what he does say is that Amber was the detonator. In other words, Amber was the reason all of this escalated. And so I think the reason he presented that was to highlight and potentially, show that maybe Amber should have a more severe sentence, okay? But anyhow, Kyle is arrested, charged with first-degree murder. He's subsequently convicted of that, and so he is going to spend the rest of his life in jail. Amber is also arrested at school. She is subsequently charged with first-degree murder. She is found guilty, but there was a technicality in her guilty finding, so that sentence was overturned. But in 2016, she had a second trial, and that jury once again found her guilty of first-degree murder. So she's in jail, spending the rest of her life in jail. Charlie Faley, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He also was charged with first-degree murder, and he's spending the rest of his life in jail. And then Justin Soto, charged with first-degree murder, spending the rest of his life in jail. And lastly, Bargo was charged with first-degree murder, but instead of life in prison, he was sentenced to death. Okay, and so as I understand it, at least presented, he is the youngest death row inmate in Florida waiting to be executed. So that's episode 48. Episode 48 is Teenage Deadly Drama. Okay, yeah, it's just unfortunate. Yeah. This particular series that I'm watching is called Killer Post, and I mean, as I've stated, even on the last episode 47, when we were talking about the other case, we've talked about social media on this podcast several times in so many different arenas, and it's something that is always going to come up because it's so prevalent in our lives, right? We live and breathe it, whether it's TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, even though I don't really use Facebook anymore, Twitter. All these different avenues of staying interconnected with each other. But that interconnectedness also creates so much drama that we sometimes can't control, right? Once you put something out there in the ether of social media, there's a potential that is going to come back and bite you later, right? So just be cognizant of that. Think about that, particularly for younger folks. Make sure that you use your social media wisely. It is not a platform for you to just get out there, say and do whatever you want. Think about it. Parents, think about monitoring it. I know it sounds a little archaic. Some people think they need to, you need to trust your child. Yeah, that's fine. I trust them after they start paying their bills and get out of my house. But other than that, find out what's going on, right? So yeah, make sure that you like us. You can comment on the videos, good, bad, or indifferent. It's out there. I put it out there. I'm proud of the work that we do. It does not appease everyone, and that is just life, right? You can't make everybody happy, right? If you would be so kind as to rate us on Apple Podcasts, I greatly appreciate that. Remember that all of our episode transcripts are on the website, and I also link them into every episode that we do. And so until next time, here at the Cafe, we will continue to drink, listen, converse. Latte is pretty good. And you make sure that you do the same thing too. Until next time, peace and love.